The golden halls of the imperial palace felt colder than ever as Princess Anna stood before the medical council. Their faces, a mix of different alien species, all wore the same expression of disapproval. She kept her head high, even as her hands trembled slightly behind her back. "The tests are conclusive, Your Majesty," the head medical officer spoke to Emperor James, completely ignoring Anna's presence. "The princess's reproductive system is non-functional. She will never bear children." The emperor's face hardened. In the Stellar Empire, the ability to continue the royal bloodline wasn't just a tradition, it was law. A Barren royal was considered a threat to the empire's stability. "There must be something you can do," the emperor said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The medical officers exchanged glances, their multiple eyes blinking in synchronized discomfort. "We have tried every treatment known to the empire," another doctor said. "The princess's condition is beyond our help." Anna watched her father's expression change from hope to resignation. She had seen that look before, when her mother died 10 years ago. It was the look of someone forced to make an impossible choice. The news spread through the palace faster than light-speed communications. Within hours, the three noble houses that had been competing for her hand in marriage withdrew their proposals. Servants who had bowed to her that morning now avoided eye contact. The crown princess, once the most sought-after bride in the empire, had become a political liability overnight. 2 days later, Anna found herself in her father's private study. The room was filled with artifacts from 1,000 worlds, but today they seemed to mock her with their perfection. "The council has made their recommendation," Emperor James said, not meeting her eyes. "You understand what this means?" "Yes, father." Anna's voice remained steady, though her heart felt like it was being crushed by a gravitational collapse. "I am to be exiled." "Not exiled," he corrected quickly, but they both knew it was a lie. "You will be appointed as special observer to mining colony Delta 7. It's a temporary arrangement." They both knew there was nothing temporary about it. Delta 7 was where the Empire sent problems they wanted to forget. It was far enough from the Central Worlds that news of her shame wouldn't cause political ripples. The next morning, Anna boarded her transport ship with only 2 bags. Royal protocol stated she should have a full escort, but protocol didn't apply to her anymore. She had been stripped of her titles, though they let her keep her first name. Small mercy that it was. As the ship lifted off, she watched the golden spires of the imperial palace grow smaller through the viewport. The city she had known all her life, with its floating gardens and crystal towers, disappeared into the clouds. Her home for 26 years, gone in moments. The journey to Delta 7 took 3 weeks in hyperspace. Anna spent most of it in her cabin, reading technical manuals about mining operations. If she was going to live on a mining colony, she decided she would at least understand how it worked. When the ship finally dropped out of hyperspace, her first view of Delta 7 was like a punch to the stomach. The planet was brown and gray, with vast open pit mines visible even from orbit. The only spots of color were the environmental domes where the colonists lived. The landing pad was empty except for one official who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Welcome to Delta 7, he mumbled, not bothering with her former title. "Your quarters are in Block C, Unit 17. The morning shift begins at 600. Anna picked up her bags and walked toward the residential dome. Behind her, the transport ship was already powering up its engines, eager to leave this place behind. As she walked through the airlock, the recycled air hit her face with its metallic taste. This was her new life now. No more golden halls, no more royal duties, no more marriage prospects. She was just another resident of a forgotten mining colony on the edge of space. But as she entered her small quarters and set down her bags, Anna made a silent promise to herself. She would survive this. She would find a way to make this work. She just didn't know yet how drastically everything would change when the humans arrived. 3 years had passed on Delta 7, and Anna had learned to blend in. Her hands, once soft from palace life, now carried the same calluses as any other mining technician. She had proven herself useful in organizing supply chains and improving efficiency in the northern mining sector. Not that anyone knew her real identity anymore. She was just Anna, the quiet woman from Block C. That morning started like any other, with the artificial sun lamps slowly brightening the dome to simulate dawn. Anna was checking maintenance logs in the control room when the proximity alarms began blaring. Unidentified vessels approaching, the automated system announced. 3 ships of unknown configuration. The control room erupted into chaos. Delta 7 wasn't supposed to receive any ships for another 2 months. Pirates were always a possibility, though they rarely ventured this far into Empire space. Getting visual now, called out Robert, the senior controller. His fingers danced across the holographic display. Nothing like I've ever seen before. Anna moved closer to the screen. The ships were sleek and white, with smooth curves unlike the angular designs of Empire vessels. They'd moved with a grace that suggested advanced propulsion systems. "They're broadcasting," Robert said, surprise evident in his voice. "In multiple frequencies. Wait, they're using basic mathematical sequences as a foundation for communication." Anna's heart raced. First contact protocols had been drilled into her since childhood. "Put it on the main screen," she ordered, momentarily forgetting she wasn't a princess anymore. To her surprise, Robert complied. The message decoded itself before their eyes. Simple mathematics evolved into complex equations, then into language. Within minutes, they were receiving clear transmissions. "Greetings, Delta 7 Colony," a calm voice said through the speakers. "This is Captain Lisa West of the Earth exploration vessel Hope. We come in peace and seek permission to dock. Earth. Humans." Anna had heard rumors about them. A newly spacefaring race that had somehow developed faster than light travel independently. The Empire considered them a curiosity, nothing more. "This is Delta 7 Control," Robert responded, his voice shaking slightly. We need to consult with Empire authorities before." "The nearest Empire vessel is 3 weeks away," Anna interrupted, "and our protocols clearly state that any peaceful contact should be met with diplomatic courtesy." The years of royal training were surfacing now, when they needed them most. The docking process went smoothly. Anna watched through the observation window as the human delegation emerged from their ship. They looked remarkably similar to her own species, though their clothing was unlike anything she'd seen before. Among them was a man who introduced himself as Dr. Thomas Miller, a medical researcher. During the formal dinner that the colony hastily arranged, he spoke passionately about human advances in medicine and their mission to explore and help other civilizations. "We've found that many species have similar biological structures," he explained, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "Our medical solutions often work across species boundaries, with proper modification." Anna found herself drawn into conversation with him. For the first time in years, she spoke about her past. Not everything, but enough. "Infertility?" Dr. Miller asked, his forehead creasing in thought. "Would you mind if I asked about the specific diagnosis?" Anna hesitated. Her condition had been her shame for so long, but something about his professional curiosity made her continue. She described the tests, the treatments, the final verdict from the Empire's finest doctors. Dr. Miller's expression changed from interest to astonishment. That's completely treatable by our standards. We solved similar issues centuries ago." The dining hall seemed to fade away as Anna processed his words. "What do you mean, treatable?" "The condition you're describing. We have several routine procedures that could correct it. The success rate is over 95%. He pulled out a small device, scrolling through medical data. "In fact, we have the necessary equipment on our ship." Anna stared at him, her world tilting on its axis. 3 years of exile, her entire life derailed, all because of something humans considered routine. The humans' arrival wasn't just first contact, it was about to change everything. And for Anna, It was the first glimpse of hope she'd had in years. The human medical bay looked nothing like the sterile, intimidating chambers of the imperial hospitals. Warm lights gave the room a welcoming glow, and the medical equipment, though advanced, seemed almost artistic in its design. Anna sat on the examination table, watching Dr. Miller study her previous medical records. She had spent the last week gathering courage for this moment, wondering if she dared to hope. "This is fascinating," Dr. Miller muttered, his eyes scanning the holographic displays. "Your doctors weren't wrong about what they saw. They just didn't understand what they were looking at." He pulled up two images side by side. "See this? What your doctors thought was a fatal flaw in your reproductive system is actually a common genetic variation. On Earth, we see this in about 1 in every 1,000 people." Anna leaned forward, studying the images. But the Empire's best doctors said they were working with outdated information. Dr. Miller explained gently. "It's like, imagine trying to fix a quantum computer with stone tools. The Empire's medical technology is advanced in many ways, but in reproductive medicine, they're centuries behind." The treatment plan Dr. Miller proposed was surprisingly simple. 3 procedures, spread over 2 weeks. No pain, no recovery time needed. Anna could hardly believe it. "You'll remain conscious through the whole process," he explained, setting up the first piece of equipment. "The nanobots we'll use are programmed to make minimal adjustments at the cellular level. You'll barely feel anything." As the first procedure began, Anna watched in amazement as holographic displays showed the nanobots at work inside her body. Tiny machines, smaller than cells, moved with purpose, correcting what the Empire had deemed incurable. "This is remarkable," she whispered, watching the process. "How do humans develop this technology?" Dr. Miller smiled as he monitored the procedure. "Necessity, mostly. Earth had its own fertility crisis centuries ago. We had to evolve our medical science or face extinction. Now, these procedures are so common, they're considered basic medicine." The first session ended in less than an hour. Anna felt no different, but the medical scans showed significant progress. Over the next 2 weeks, she returned for the remaining procedures, each one bringing her closer to something she had thought impossible. Word spread through the colony, despite their attempts at discretion. Other women began approaching the human medical team, asking about their own conditions. The humans, true to their nature, helped everyone they could. On the final day of her treatment, Anna sat nervously as Dr. Miller ran the last series of scans. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of medical equipment. "Well," he said finally, turning to her with a smile, "everything looks perfect. Your reproductive system is fully functional. You can have children whenever you choose to." Anna's hands trembled as she looked at the medical readouts. Where there had once been signs of failure, now there was nothing but healthy tissue. Years of shame and exile, undone in 2 weeks. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "No thanks needed," Dr. Miller replied. "This is why we explore space, to help where we can, to share what we know. Though I must warn you," his expression grew serious, "once word of this gets back to the Empire, things might get complicated." Anna nodded. She had been thinking about this too. The Empire's medical establishment would be furious. Their dogma about incurable conditions had just been proven wrong by newcomers to the galactic stage. "Let them come," she said, straightening her shoulders. "They can't take this away from me." As she left the medical bay that day, Anna felt truly free for the first time in years. The humans hadn't just fixed her body. They had given her back her future. But even as she celebrated her personal victory, political storms were brewing. In the Imperial Palace, reports were already arriving about the miracle cures being performed on Delta 7. The Empire's reaction would change not just Anna's life, but the lives of countless others across the galaxy. The wheels of change had begun to turn, and nothing would ever be the same. News travels fast, even in the furthest corners of space. Within a month of Anna's successful treatment, Delta 7 had transformed from a forgotten mining colony into a beacon of hope. Ships began arriving daily, carrying passengers from across the empire, all seeking the humans' medical help. The colony's landing pads, once empty except for supply ships, now bustled with activity. Women of various species, all declared barren by imperial medicine, arrived with hope in their eyes. The human medical team worked tirelessly, treating each case with the same care they had shown Anna. "We need to expand the medical facility," Dr. Miller told Anna one morning, as they watched another ship descend through the dome's transparent ceiling. "We've treated over 200 patients in the past month alone." Anna had found herself working closely with the human medical team, acting as a bridge between them and the Empire's citizens. Her own experience made others trust her, and her years of diplomatic training proved invaluable. "Listen to this," she said, showing Dr. Miller a datapad. "Imperial Medical Academy is calling these treatments dangerous experimental procedures. They're trying to discourage people from coming here." Dr. Miller shook his head. "Dangerous? We've had 100% success rate so far. These procedures have been standard practice on Earth for..." He was interrupted by a commotion in the waiting area. A group of Imperial medical officers had arrived unannounced, their formal uniforms standing out among the colony's practical clothing. By order of the Imperial Medical Council, their leader announced, "This facility is to cease all unauthorized medical procedures immediately." Anna stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority she had hidden for 3 years. "These procedures are saving lives and giving hope to those you abandoned. You have no jurisdiction here." The lead officer's eyes narrowed. "And who are you to challenge Imperial authority?" For a moment, Anna considered maintaining her cover, but she was tired of hiding. "I am Princess Anna of House Star, first daughter of Emperor James, and living proof that your medical knowledge is outdated." The silence that followed was deafening. The medical officers stared at her in shock, while patients and staff whispered among themselves. Some of the older officers recognized her from years ago. "Impossible," one officer stammered. "The princess was exiled." Anna finished for him. "Yes, because of your flawed diagnosis. Yet here I stand, fully healed thanks to human medicine. Would you like to run your tests again?" The medical team had no choice but to conduct their examinations. Using their own equipment, they confirmed what the humans had accomplished. Their shocked expressions as they reviewed the results gave Anna a satisfaction she hadn't expected to feel. "This will cause an uproar in the medical council," one officer muttered. "Good," Anna replied. "It's time for change." As the Imperial officers departed, their ships heavy with data they didn't want to believe, Anna knew the real battle was just beginning. The Empire's medical establishment wouldn't accept this challenge to their authority quietly. That evening, as she helped process new arrival requests, a message arrived that made her blood run cold. It was from the Imperial Palace, marked with her father's personal seal. "They know who I am now," she told Dr. Miller, her hand steady despite her racing heart. "The Empire will come for me." "We'll stand with you," he replied without hesitation. "The Earth government has already declared this medical mission a humanitarian priority. We won't abandon our patients." Anna looked around the busy medical facility. In one corner, a woman was crying tears of joy after receiving her successful test results. In another, a young couple was scheduling their treatment, hope written clearly on their faces. This was worth fighting for. The Empire had sent her to Delta 7 to be forgotten, but instead, she had found her purpose. The humans hadn't just healed her body. They had given her a cause. As she watched another ship dock, carrying more seekers of hope, Anna began planning. The Empire wanted her back, but she was no longer the same person they had exiled. She was stronger now, and she had allies. The real question was, what would her father do when he realized his barren daughter could now bear children? The Imperial Palace was in chaos. Emperor James stood at his window, watching the capital city's endless lines of air traffic, while behind him his advisors argued. The medical reports are verified, Your Majesty, the chief medical officer said, his voice trembling. Princess Anna's condition has been corrected. The humans somehow succeeded where we failed. The Emperor turned slowly, his face unreadable. 3 years ago, he had sent his daughter away to avoid scandal. Now, her recovery threatened to shake the Empire's foundations. And you're certain these treatments are safe? He asked. We've analyzed the data from hundreds of successful cases, another advisor responded. The humans' medical technology is far beyond our understanding in this field. The Emperor's private chamber fell silent as he walked to his desk and picked up a holographic image. Anna, from before her exile. His only daughter, whom he had failed. Prepare my personal flagship, he commanded suddenly. We leave for Delta 7 within the hour. Meanwhile, on Delta 7, Anna was dealing with a different kind of chaos. Word of her true identity had spread through the colony, and now she found herself facing both awe and resentment from people who had worked beside her for years. 3 marriage proposals arrived this morning, Dr. Miller informed her, handing over a datapad. All from noble houses that rejected you before. Anna laughed bitterly. Amazing how attractive I've become now that I'm fixed. The colony's communication system suddenly blared to life. Imperial flagship detected entering the system. Estimated arrival, 2 hours. Anna's hands tightened on the datapad. He's coming himself. I didn't expect that. The next 2 hours were a blur of activity. The human medical team refused to suspend their operations, continuing to treat patients even as the massive Imperial flagship appeared in the sky above Delta 7. When Emperor James stepped onto the colony's landing pad, he found himself facing an unusual sight. His daughter stood waiting, but not alone. Behind her stood the human medical team, and behind them, hundreds of patients and colony workers. Father, Anna said, bowing formally. The Emperor stepped forward, ignoring protocol, and took his daughter's hands. I received the medical reports, he said softly. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Anna asked. Or would you have assumed I was clinging to false hope? Before he could answer, alarms blared again. Multiple Imperial medical ships were dropping out of hyperspace, surrounding the colony. The Medical Council, the Emperor growled. I didn't authorize this. Dr. Miller stepped forward. Your Majesty, we have over 300 patients currently under treatment. Any interruption cold. They're demanding we shut down the facility, a colony controller announced over the comm. They're calling it a threat to Imperial Medical Authority. The Emperor looked at his daughter, then at the humans who had helped her, and finally at the crowds of people watching anxiously. In that moment, he had to choose between maintaining the Empire's medical orthodoxy and embracing change. Open a channel to the Medical Council ships, he commanded. The authority in his voice made everyone stand straighter. This is your Emperor speaking. Delta 7 is now under my direct protection. Any interference with the human medical facility will be considered an act of treason. Anna stared at her father in surprise. You're protecting them? No, he replied, turning to her. I'm protecting you, and everyone else these humans can help. I failed you once by trusting the wrong advisors. I won't make that mistake again. But even as the medical ships retreated, Anna knew this was just the beginning. The nobility would be scrambling now, trying to adjust to this new reality where their basic assumptions about medicine had been upended. They'll want you to return, Dr. Miller said quietly. The nobility will be fighting over who gets to marry the suddenly eligible princess. Anna looked at her father, who was now deeply engaged in conversation with the human medical team. Things were changing fast, but this time, she had allies. This time, she had power. Let them try, she said. I have other plans. The week following the Emperor's arrival had turned Delta 7 into the center of Imperial politics. Noble houses sent representatives daily, each trying to secure Anna's hand in marriage. The once quiet mining colony now hosted more luxury ships than mining vessels. Inside the human medical facility, Anna sat in a quiet corner with Dr. Miller, watching the latest group of dignitaries tour the building. "That's the fourth marriage proposal today," Dr. Miller noted, reviewing messages on his datapad. "House Crystal offers you control of their medical research division. How generous of them," Anna replied dryly. "Considering they were among the first to reject me 3 years ago." A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the window, they could see a massive Imperial fleet dropping out of hyperspace, far larger than necessary for a diplomatic mission. Admiral Paul's battle group. Anna recognized the formation. The medical council must have convinced him I'm being held against my will. Emergency alarms blared throughout the colony. The human ships, though fewer in number, moved to defensive positions around the medical facility. The standoff that Anna had feared was becoming reality. "This is Admiral Paul of the Imperial Fleet," a voice boomed through all communication channels. "We are here to escort Princess Anna back to the Imperial capital. Any resistance will be met with force." Before anyone could respond, 3 Earth defense cruisers emerged from hyperspace, taking position alongside the human medical ships. The message was clear: Earth would protect its humanitarian mission. Emperor James rushed into the medical facility, his face dark with anger. "I didn't authorize this military action. The medical council is overstepping its bounds." "They're afraid," Anna said, watching the ships maneuver in space above them. "Everything they built their authority on is crumbling. They're desperate." The tension in space grew as more ships arrived from both sides. What had started as a medical breakthrough was about to become an interstellar incident. Anna felt the weight of the moment. Her decision now could prevent or trigger a war between Earth and the Empire. Thousands of lives hung in the balance. She walked to the communication console and opened a channel to all ships. "This is Princess Anna of the Stellar Empire speaking." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ships seemed to pause in their maneuvering. 3 years ago, the Empire sent me here because they thought I was worthless. Today, you fight over me because you think I'm fixed. But I am not a prize to be won or a tool for your political games." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I choose to stay on Delta 7, not as a princess, but as a liaison between human medical science and Imperial citizens who need help. If you want war over this choice, remember, history will judge you for denying medical care to your own people." Admiral Paul's voice came back, hesitant now. "Your Highness, we have orders." "From the medical council, not from your emperor," she interrupted. "Look around you, Admiral. How many ships in your fleet carry crew members who could benefit from human medical knowledge? How many of your own family members have been declared incurable by Imperial doctors?" The silence that followed told her she had struck a nerve. She could almost imagine the discussions happening on those ships, as people realized what they were really fighting against. Emperor James stepped forward, adding his voice to the broadcast. "As Emperor, I support my daughter's choice. Any action against Delta 7 will be considered an act of rebellion against the throne." One by one, the Imperial ships began powering down their weapons. The crisis wasn't over, but the immediate threat of violence had passed. Dr. Miller touched Anna's shoulder gently. "You know this isn't the end. The medical council won't give up easily." "No," Anna agreed, watching the Imperial ships retreat. "But we've shown them we won't give up either. This is just the beginning." She turned to her father, seeing new respect in his eyes. She was no longer the shamed princess who had left the capital in disgrace. She had found her own power, her own purpose. The next steps would be challenging, but for the first time, she was choosing her own path. 1 year had passed since the standoff over Delta 7. The mining colony had transformed into something unprecedented in Imperial history. A joint human Imperial medical center that drew patients from across the galaxy. Anna stood in what used to be the colony's main control room, now converted into a sophisticated administrative center. Holographic displays showed the status of 15 similar facilities that had opened across the Empire, all operating under her supervision. "The latest statistics are impressive," Dr. Miller said, bringing up the data. Over 10,000 successful treatments this year alone. The medical council's opposition is crumbling. Anna nodded, remembering how far they'd come. After the confrontation in space, she had proposed a bold plan, using her royal authority to establish a new branch of imperial medicine, one that would work alongside human doctors rather than against them. "We've received another invitation from the Imperial Medical Academy," her assistant mentioned. "They want you to give a lecture on human imperial medical cooperation." "The same academy that once declared me a lost cause," Anna mused. Times really have changed. The door chimed, and Emperor James entered. His visits had become regular over the past year, though this one was special. Today marked the official recognition of the Interspecies Medical Alliance, with Anna as its first director. "The ceremony is ready," he announced. The medical council representatives actually showed up this time. Anna straightened her formal robes, a unique design that combined imperial dignity with practical human styling. As she walked toward the ceremony hall, she passed dozens of medical staff, both human and imperial, working together seamlessly. The ceremony hall, once a simple mining warehouse, was now filled with dignitaries from both Earth and the Empire. Among them sat many of Anna's former patients, including several who had risen to prominent positions after their treatments. As she took the podium, Anna looked out at the assembled crowd. "A year ago, we stood on the brink of conflict over a simple truth, that healing should know no boundaries. Today, we celebrate not just medical advancement, but the power of cooperation." She gestured to the human medical team. "Our friends from Earth showed us that what we thought impossible was merely unexplored. They taught us that traditions should guide us, not bind us." The medical council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but they couldn't deny the results. Their own families had benefited from the new treatments. Moving forward, the Interspecies Medical Alliance will continue to expand. We're not just treating fertility issues anymore. Human medical knowledge is helping us understand and cure dozens of conditions we once thought hopeless. After the ceremony, Anna found a quiet moment with her father on the observation deck. Below them, the once barren surface of Delta 7 now showed signs of development. New medical facilities, research centers, and housing complexes. "You've built something remarkable here," the Emperor said. "Far more than I could have imagined when—" He trailed off, old guilt surfacing. "When you exiled me." Anna finished gently. "That exile gave me purpose, Father. Sometimes we find our destiny in the strangest places." A small ship landed on one of the medical pads, another patient arriving with hope in their heart. Anna watched as the medical team went to greet them, the same way they had greeted her years ago. She had received dozens of marriage proposals over the past year, each promising power, wealth, or influence. She had declined them all. Her true marriage was to this mission, to the work that gave hope to the hopeless. "Director Anna," Dr. Miller called from the doorway. "The Earth Medical Council is ready for their consultation about expanding the program to the Outer Rim territories." Anna smiled at her father. "Duty calls." As she walked to her next meeting, Anna felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had transformed her shame into strength, her exile into opportunity. The Barren Princess had become something more, a bridge between worlds, a healer of bodies and divisions. And somewhere in the Empire, another person who had lost hope was boarding a ship bound for Delta 7, about to discover that nothing was truly impossible anymore. The end.